Good morning, everybody. Let's barbecue. I'm going to show you what I got set up today. This is just a little video for anybody who may want to start smoking and maybe not sure how to get it going. So I've got show you what I've got here. Turn the camera around. I've got just a standard little Masterbuilt smoker, and you got your wood box here. I've loaded it up with mesquite wood. We'll talk more about wood in a minute. And got it heating up, as you can see, the orange grate. And I don't want to put my meat into a cold smoker, so but you just plug it in, and you can control your heat right there. And you want to keep it away, have some distance between your precious belongings. But anyway, I'm starting off with mesquite wood. Mesquite is a pretty powerful flavor. Today I'm smoking brisket, and it's my choice. My wood of choice is to begin with mesquite, and I could do it with mesquite the whole time and it would be great. What I'm going to do is alternate today. I've got pecan, and pecan's it's a good flavor. I'm being kind of quiet because it's early and we have neighbors. Pecan's a great wood. It's not too bitter. Some kind of woods get bitter. I have oak. Oak can be that way sometimes. It's real strong. Mesquite is kind of it's like your classic kind of spicy barbecue smoke flavor. So if that makes any sense to you, it's very pungent. It's unmistakable. It's good for anything. Some people say you shouldn't use it for chicken. I think that's stupid. I think chicken is great with mesquite, as long as you're not going to be like charring it to death. So I've got a 15-pound brisket today, and I'm about to show you guys how to break it down and season it. We'll go over a seasoning blend that I use pretty often. But anyway, this is getting the smoker ready. Make sure your shelves are good to go. Mine has 3 shelves in it. And so I have the space I need, and I've got my wood box already set up. Now, a lot of people wonder, should you use wet or dry? Personally, I think it's stupid to use wet chips because you're going to be getting them to this point of smoking anyway. That's the goal of smoking. And why would you want to delay that process? Some people want their wood chips to last longer. They're only $2.50 a bag. Go ahead and just get the most smoke in it you can by just putting your dry chips in there. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and move inside. Alright guys, we're in the kitchen now, and I'm going to show you what we've got. 15-pound brisket. It's a packer brisket, so it came from the meat packers from Walmart. It'll come in a bag, big old plastic bag. And a lot of people look at this and they get freaked out. They're like, oh my gosh, what should I do? Well, you got your 2 main parts of it. You got your flat, adequately named because it's flat. That's this big broad piece here. You've got your point, and that's a thick roast-like part here. And so what we're going to do is we're actually... I know, baby, it's okay. And so my little girl's wondering why I left the front door open. So you're going to want to cut it right along here. And there's different opinions on it. I'm still not an expert, but this is how I do it, and it works fine. And so you want to cut kind of right along here so you can divide those 2 pieces of meat. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to put this right here so hopefully you can get a good look at it. Alright, got your knife. You want to cut, you don't want to go crazy. You want to cut nice and deliberately. And you're going to cut that layer of fat. The layer of fat is kind of tough. The knife can slip, so be careful. And I'm using a serrated blade because it saws. I prefer that. If you have a really sharp, smooth edge knife, you can use that. And you're going to pull gently So I've already got it starting to separate. So you're going to pull gently and let the knife do the work. Let gravity, and you'll slowly pull it away. Alright? That's the inside of your brisket. You've got that white is your ribbon of fat through the middle, and that's where your juice is going to come from.
Daddy,
don't mess that up.
it's super shine.
Oh, that's awesome, baby. Can you open the front door for me? I'm going to have to go back outside in a few minutes.
It's very special.
Awesome. Okay, everybody.
What's very special, which I watched?
So this is, I mean, there's no need to trim any of this. Some people may try to get rid of that. It's fine. We'll get rid of it later if you want to. If you get rid of your fat, you're going to get rid of your flavor and your juices. So what I'm going to do, and this is a little trick. Some people try to put, you know, their meat right in the smoker on the, like the oven grates. I don't think it makes that big of a difference. And it also gives you the potential of scorching the bottom of your meat. And so you wind up with like a meat crust, which sounds good at first, but it's not good. It's like really tough. You can't eat it. It's not bark. So these foil pans are perfect. They get rid of all the mess. They don't fill your smoker up with fat drippings, which can flame up. And they keep the bottom of the meat from getting scorched. The juices stay in, and cleanup is really easy. So I'm going to actually take this. Now I do fat side up. Now if you are not, there's some people out there who say you should do fat side down if it's going to be exposed directly to the heat. That way it doesn't scorch the meat. We're not doing that, so I'm putting the fat side up, and you'll see it fits perfectly in there. And you might be wondering, how's the smoke going to get into the meat? It will, don't worry. And we can always turn the meat over halfway through if we want to. So this one's good to go. And now we're left with this big old honking piece here called the point. It's a little difficult. It's where your fatty pieces come from. Some people hate this part. This can be one of the best parts, though, if you just kind of keep in mind how to do it. So, remember the flat was like that thick. Look how thick this is. So I'm actually going to do something that some people may not want to do, but I think it's smart. I'm going to kind of butterfly it just a little so it has an opportunity for the heat to get in and cook it evenly. Again, some people were going to kill me online for this. The smoke and the meat don't know they're being butterflied. Just you barbecue snobs who think you're better than everybody because you cook a certain way. There's nothing non-traditional about doing this, especially if it means we get to actually have it cooked today. Alright, so butterfly that, and you're able to have it cook at a reasonable time. I'm actually not going to trim any of this fat off because I think this is perfectly fine. And so it's going to be a bit of a tight squeeze, but I can get it into my pan. And fat side up. See that? Boom, fits perfect. Alright, get rid of my mess here. Let's talk seasoning. A lot of people wonder, how should I season my brisket? Should I go to Walmart and just buy a pre-made mix? You could, but I think that's kind of silly whenever they never wind up tasting as good as you would hope. I've been disappointed by a lot of them. You go to your favorite barbecue restaurant, and the thing you notice most about it is how smoky and how good the flavor is. You don't notice a lot of seasoning. You don't notice chili powder or cumin. You don't notice really anything but just how good that meat is, all right, and how flavorful it is. I think I have the solution to how you can have that. I've done this before, and it tastes great. This is my go-to. This is my seasoning mix, and so what you're going to do is there's only 3 ingredients in it. There's salt, pepper, and sugar. Some people don't season at all. I think that's a bit extreme. You have to at least have salt. So I take generally, I'm trying to give you the general ratios, and you can change it some to taste, but you're going to have 10 tablespoons of salt, about 4 tablespoons of pepper, and 5 tablespoons of sugar, white sugar. And you may vary that. Like today, for instance, I ran out of coarse ground pepper. I recommend you use coarse ground pepper, the bigger pieces. I don't have ground up fine like table pepper. I'm kind of mad about it, but it's going to be fine. So I had to adjust things on that. What you want to do is you want to lick your finger, dab it in there and taste it. And if it tastes kind of salty at first, and then sweet, and then you get left with a little pepper, that's good. You never want to turn your brisket or any of your barbecue into peppered jerky. Nobody will appreciate that, so don't do it. All right. So you hear a lot about rubbing. I rub. Here's a little thing I learned. If you go and you try to massage the brisket with this seasoning mix, you're going to end up with clumps of seasoning all over your fingers and very little of it getting into the meat. So rubbing the meat is a bit of a misnomer. What you're going to do, you're going to grab something, you're going to sprinkle the meat. All right, and that way it coats it. The meat is already damp. Coat it. There's no need to rub it down with anything. At least I don't think there is. Coat the meat. Make sure you pull back in the brisket. You have these little folds of meat, so pull back the folds of meat. If it's like a piece of fat that's folded over, and make sure you get underneath there. You can kind of pat it on sometimes, but then your fingers get wet and then it clumps up. So there's pros and cons of doing that. Sometimes you just have to though to get in a little piece. Sometimes you're gonna think you're putting too much. It's a big, thick piece of meat. It's the only way. It's the only seasoning we're putting in it. We didn't brine it, obviously, because that's stupid. All right, I'm gonna turn it over. And sprinkle. I'll show you. Ooh. And you want to pay, I always, if I have to emphasize a place to season, it's the fat. Because that fat's going to wind up basting the meat as it cooks, as the fat melts. And you want it to be nice, salty fat. Just imagine how good that's going to be. Alright. The edges are always really good on a brisket, so pay attention to them a little bit. Alright, I think that's okay for now. You can actually flip it back over. And do you see how what's happening here? You might not be able to tell. It's just starting to kind of become part of the meat. That's because the salt and the sugar are combining with the moisture there. And already starting to make a bit of a crust. Now you add smoke to that, it's going to be phenomenal. See, I'm paying special attention to get into the little cracks. And there's a big ball of fat. There you go. Alright, that one's good for now. Let's turn our attention to this piece. This is the flat. No secret to what we're going to do here. We're going to season the mess out of it. All this beautiful fat. Flip it over. My camera work is not great because I decided to do this morning. I haven't even had coffee yet, so don't judge me. Alright. And you see how it's, just like a moment ago we talked about. See how it's starting to become part of the fat? That's good. Moisture's starting to become part of it. It kind of coats it with itself. You don't have to rub it if you sprinkle it on there the right way. You wind up getting more bang for your buck, more seasoning. Okay, just for the heck of it, this one's a big old thick honking piece. Put a little extra on there. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, it's so much salt. Well, yeah. You want it to taste good, don't you? You're going to spend bunch of money for a brisket. Last thing you want to do is to have to get to the table and salt it and put sauce on it and all that junk. Doing it like this, you could eat it without salt or without sauce, without adding any extra salt, because it's going to taste awesome from the get-go. Okay, I'm going to go put this in, and then what I'm going to do is wait. Let's see. It is like 7 in the morning right now. My wood chips generally last about an hour or two, so I loaded it up with mesquite. I'm going to run mesquite on it for the first bit to permeate the meat with that really strong smoke. And I'm going to follow it with pecan and then probably mesquite again later. So about every hour and a half, 2 hours, I'm adding different kinds of wood chips. I'm going to smoke this for about 8 hours. Some people say you need to smoke it like 12 hours, or you need to smoke it like 20 hours. I think that's just a pride thing among barbecue guys, like how long can you smoke it? What I'm going to do is I'm going to smoke this until it's dark, until it is loaded up realistically with smoke, and then it really can't get any more smoke after a certain point. I mean, it's like when you're playing outside when you're a kid and you're all wet and muddy. When you're already wet and muddy, just keep playing outside because you can't get any more wet and muddy. Smoke's kind of the same way. So what I'm going to do is, instead of depending on my smoker to get the meat up to 190 to 200 degrees, which, by the way, you need to get your brisket up to about 190 to 200. All this fat we looked at and all this marbling, some of that's connective tissue, and that will not really break down until you reach about the 200-degree mark. So don't pull it out at 160 and say, oh, technically it's done. Yeah, you're not going to get E. coli, but you're going to have to get dentures when you're done because you've been chewing through it. It's going to be an awful experience. You're never going to want brisket again. So, just a few follow-up notes. I've got everything in the smoker now. The bigger piece of meat I put on the bottom, and then because this is where the heat source is, the thinner piece, which is the flat, I've put on the top rack, and it won't take nearly as long, as much heat to get that taken care of. You want to say hi?
Hi.
It's my little girl Savannah. She says hi, and my barbecue buddy for the day. Temperature-wise, there's a lot of debate about temperature. Some people say 200, low and slow. Some people say 350, 300. I try to keep it around 300. I don't want the meat to sit there. You think so too? Yeah, she thinks so too. I don't want the meat to sit there like this tepid temperature because it came out of the fridge, so it's cold. Then put it in a kind of hot smoker for a while. It's just going to sit there and take a while to get up to a safe temperature. So I like to start off, pretty good heat, about 300, and it'll vary some. A lot of things vary with the smokers. How hot is it outside? Is it windy? Is it in the sun? As long as you're consistently smoking, putting smoke on it, and it's hot, don't worry too much, okay? You'll drive yourself crazy trying to get the heat just right at a certain temperature. If you have a fancy smoker that can monitor its own heat, great, go for it. If you're like me and just have a little thermometer attached to the door, which is not accurate anyway, just run it 75% heat, sometimes 100% heat, and then finish it off in the oven if it doesn't get tender enough for you. And that's our extra tidbits for today. All right, we're about 5 hours in now, and just going to do a little update here. I've alternated between the pecan wood chips and my personal favorite, the mesquite wood chips. And right now I'm running at just about 250, which is a good temperature. Open it up here. Oop, there go my pliers. And we're starting to get some color there on the meat. I hope you can see that. About an hour ago, I actually took some of the drippings out, and that way it's not boiling in the grease, but the smoke can actually get in the lower part and not just the top part. So this is your fat. You can see, zoom in here, hopefully you can see that. Fat just pours out when you push it. That's a good thing. Starting to get the temperature. You're starting to get some, let me pull this out, safety first, some real good color on it at this point. And you see how it's cooking in the oil there. That's fat, but it's also water that comes out of the meat naturally, and so it's going to keep it moist. And I don't have to add any water to my water pan down here. Those of you who aren't sure how these smokers work, you have a pan for water or apple juice or whatever, and then you have a wood box. You put your wood in. And I'm actually going to go hang out for a while. I don't have to come out here and add any more, so I'm going to put some more wood in here. Try to figure out how to do that with only one hand. I'll put you down for a second. Alright. And I'm just going to put some in there. I'll show you what I did. There you go. And the lid has a little lid so it doesn't close all the way. If you have no air, you have no smoke, so it keeps it propped open a little bit. And that's the heating element, like in your oven. So that heats up the box, which ignites the wood, which brings the smoke. Again, we're cooking the larger piece, or the point, down here closer to the heat, because it can take it better. The flat, which is a thinner cut of meat, is at the top, so it's not quite as direct on the heat. Alright, I'm going to close it up. It's been about 8 hours. I started this brisket today, this morning. You guys are with me, and we started that at about 7:30, and it's now 3:30 in the afternoon. And I'm just going to turn this around and show you what we've got. And I've got a butter knife here, and it's a good little test. I would have just put it in there really easy. There's no resistance to the butter knife. That's fat there, of course. I'm also getting into some of the meat. That's the point, the flat. There's a little more resistance there, but it's still very tender. I could cut this with a butter knife, no problem. Alright, I've got someone holding the camera. Thanks, Mary. And I'm going to show you guys just real quick how to slice a brisket. So go ahead. What I'm going to do is, there's better ways to do this, obviously, but we're going to right do what we got here. Pick it up, move it over here to your cutting board. Save the juices. They're important. We worked all day for that flavor. Now, if you come down here, Mary, can you zoom in? What you have there are the ends of the meat. So the meat is actually running this way, the grooves. But you don't want to cut with the grooves, you want to cut against them. Now, to do a quick test of this, I'm going to do one little slice of crossways, because I might be wrong. That happens sometimes. Oh my goodness. Now, up here, I'm wrong. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a nice close look at this. Now, we can tell the meat. Mary, are you able to zoom in there? See how it's kind of falling apart? And you can tell, there goes our dang smoke alarm. We're not dying. We're fine. So, you have your meat running this way. So disregard everything I said. Because it's running this way, you want to cut across the grain this way. You don't want humps, and you don't want little teeny tiny shavings, because that's going to mess you up. So you want to cut it. The rule of thumb is pencil thick. That might be a bit much. Here we go again. What is it doing that for?
Stuff it in the oven.
Okay. Hopefully it won't happen again. If it does, this will be the end of our video. But we're going to slice, and you don't want to mash it. You don't want to chop it. You want to work the blade through. Easy does it. See how I'm romancing it right there almost. Okay, so I just relocated this one. Come on over this way. You see what I'm talking about here?
Got some mail and now I'm getting asked to.
Cool. All right, take a look in here, Mary. And you can see how that is just pull apart tender. It's pretty good. Alright, so what I'm going to do, come on in here a little closer. I'm going to, just like I said, romance it. Easy, you don't want to hurt it. You work long on this thing. Let the knife do the work. Don't push too hard. Look at that. Are you getting this right here, Mary? Are you able to see how that works? Alright. See, I'm not forcing it. I've got a dull knife. We're making it work. Try to keep it consistent. Now, come on around here and take a look at how it's zooming in there on those slices. Alright, now what you're going to see here, I'll take that right there, is you're able to see the pink is where the smoke penetrated the meat. All this is the smoke and the rub. The sugar in it gives it that nice color, but it's not caramelized. It's not like it's sticky barbecue sauce. It's tender. You can see how tender that is. I mean, look at that. That is nice. And that's what you want on your plate. Alright, so we're going to slice this one up. This one doesn't have the same type of grain of the meat because it's, remember we butterflied it. This makes great, and there are places where we can slice it like we are doing with the flat. My wife's eating it already. How is it? Alright, good. But this is excellent for chopped beef sandwiches. So with the parts where you cannot get discernible slices, chop that bad boy up and make you some sliced beef sandwiches. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll leave you with this. Ooh yeah. Beautiful. Now, a lot of people like to have chopped beef sandwiches because some pieces are just not really slicing friendly, and nothing better than a good brisket sandwich. Come on here and let me show you the technique. The best thing to do is to get you a non-serrated blade, a curved edge, and you're going to have random slices and bits and pieces. This is left over from the flat that I just did. To be safe, you want to hold the blade right here, put your hand on the back, and you're going to rock it like this, across. Then you're going to come around like a grid, and you're going to go the other way. You're going to scrape it up over, pile it over, rock. See how I'm doing? Rock, rock. And that's going to make sure it doesn't slip on you, doesn't cut you. Keep your fingers clean. Don't do this business. Don't do that business. Butter your hand on the back of the blade, keep it secure, and you're rocking. You're going through the meat. You're going crossways. You're going to scrape over, turn over. Alright. And there you have, that's 2 sandwiches worth of good chopped barbecue brisket. Alright, now I told you guys not to get rid of the juice. Come on in here and take a look what I'm about to do. Got it all sliced up. We don't want it to dry out. Here we go. A nice little bath in the wonderful smoky juice. It's like a little meat jacuzzi in there, which was good, always. See y'all next time.